Hi and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about everything average in Microsoft Excel. So we're going to cover 5 different functions: average, averageA, averageIF, averageIFS and Daverage. So if you do like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Let's crack on. Right, the first thing that we're going to look at is the standard average function. So I've created a small mock-up sales table, just like this one here, that spans from January through to December with a total at the end. Now, what we want to do is we want to average out the sales for each salesperson. So the first thing that we're going to do is open up the formula with equals average and open parentheses. Right, this allows us to now select the range of values that we want to get the average from. So we're going to select everything from January, drag it across to December and press enter. This now shows us the average of the salesperson across the year, and we can copy this down the table, and now we have an average for every salesperson for the entire year. Now, what we can do is now have a look at the averageA function, and then I'll go to show you the difference between the two. So we'll open up averageA, open parentheses, just as before, select everything from C to N, so January to December, and press enter. Now we can copy this down, and we have the exact same values as our regular average formula. However, depending on how you have your data set up, you might prefer to use averageA over average. And the reason is, if we have text inside our sales data, such as NA for June, this affects how these two different functions work. So the first average formula that we wrote is basically now discounting anything that is not a number. So if there's any text in the range that we selected, it will basically remove it from the calculation. And that affects averaging hugely. So for example, we now only have 11 months worth of data for the formula in column P. Column Q, however, treats any text it finds within that range as a 0. So it still uses 12 values to create its average, and any text gets dragged down all the way to a 0 value. And that's important. So you're getting a more accurate average across a year for a particular person in this example. They just were not working in June, right? So they achieved no sales in June, but their average across the year should be taking that into account, right? Because there's 365 days. How was their performance across those 365 days? Now, the first formula, the basic average function, does have a place, just not in this example. So you might want to remove text values from your data if, for example, an employee did not start until June. So they would have all of this January through to May as NA, not applicable because they weren't with the company. And therefore you would want to use the standard average function rather than an averageA. But it all depends on how your data is set up and what the end result is. Okay, so that is average and averageA. averageIF allows you to stipulate a criteria. So in this example, we'll go and open up averageIF. open parentheses. You're presented with three pieces of information that you need to feed this function. The first part is the range, which is the criteria range. So in this example, I'm going to average out all the sales by the region. So we're going to select the entire region, hit comma, and the criteria will be England or B2. And then the third part, so we'll comma, we'll select the total sales across the year. We'll close the bracket, and we're just going to hit F4 to lock in the ranges. This will let us now copy this down, and we have the average for each region for the entire year. Now we can take this one step further by using the averageIFS. However, you only need to use averageIFS if you have multiple criteria that you're trying to drill down. So let's open up another example. averageIFS. Right, the average range is where you start, so we're going to select the total column, hit comma, and we have the criteria range. So in this example, we'll choose all of the regions again, and the criteria is England. Okay, now hit a comma again, and you open up a second criteria. This time we're going to select the entire totals range, and our criteria we are going to say is greater than or equal to 8,000. Okay, and then we're going to close that formula off, press enter, and copy that down. Now this function has basically removed any total sales that are less than 8,000 and only included values that are greater than or equal to. So you can see how the averageIF with no second criteria is functioning versus the multiple criteria averageIFS. Okay, the last average function that is available in Excel, let me just remove that, right, is the daverage. Now the daverage is really useful if you have a data source that's set up more like a database. Okay, so I've just mocked one up here that basically mimics all this data just in a linear database format. So we have multiple records for each salesperson, multiple regions for each salesperson. We obviously have each month and then the sales that they achieved. Now, the daverage lets us use the headers within this database to drive out what average that we're looking for. So let's just start by saying England and for the month of February. That's our criteria. Okay, so we're going to open up a daverage function, and you're presented with three main parts to this function. The first is the database itself. The second is the field in which you want to average, and the third part is the criteria that you're going to use to average that data. So to start with, we're going to select the entire database, the field that we want. Now you've got a couple of different options. We can type out sales, we can tell it that it's the fourth column, or we can just select defaulting the header of the particular field. For this example, I'm just going to type sales, Now the criteria, because we have that here, we can just select it. It's important that you have the headers that match the database. And then, as you saw before, I just had a couple of drop-down menus predefined, so I can literally just select what I'm looking for. We can close that off with the parentheses and press enter. And that now has returned the average for the region, England, in the month of February. Now, because these are drop-down menus, I can now change this and it will tell me the average of each month by each region as I adapt and change those drop-down menus. And that's it, guys. It's as simple as that. So if you found this useful, please hit the like button and subscribe for any future Excel, Microsoft Teams, Power BI videos that I'll be publishing in the near future. Cheers.